Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Crypto Clay here, and it seems every year we have this debate of who is Satoshi Nakamoto. Today, I'm going to be telling you guys about who I possibly think that Satoshi Nakamoto is, and we're going to talk about the debate that has ensued since May 11th from a user on YouTube named Barely Sociable and Vays, along with Jimmy Song, but it seems like the debate going back and forth is mainly between this Barely Sociable person and Vays. So for those of you that don't know, Vays is somebody that has been in the crypto space since about, I think, 2013 or 2014. I don't remember whenever he came onto the scene, but I remember when, I don't remember the exact date, but I remember when he did come onto the scene, he started showing up everywhere. I remember watching some of the videos of interviews with him and him going back and forth with a lot of the people on the Bitcoin Cash side of the aisle. There was a lot that he didn't know at the time as far as Bitcoin is concerned, but he's definitely grown a lot over the years. So I would say that in this space, he's a pretty respectable person for people that are newer or have only been in the space for a couple of years. He definitely knows a lot more than the average user, and he comes from a financial background, so he already had that in place to help him kind of understand some of the fundamentals of exactly what Bitcoin is as a whole. But he saw the downsides to the financial market and what Bitcoin brought to the table and immediately became intrigued by it. So like I said, he's a very respectable person in this space, and I think a lot of people would agree that things that he says shouldn't be taken lightly. He obviously has a lot of credibility in this space, whereas Barely Sociable, not many people know who he is or who he was before making this series of videos. After watching the videos myself, I definitely thought that there were a lot of interesting points, and I had to go back and do a lot of my own research on some of the points that he made because, you know, you forget some of these things over time. You forget all of the history that has gone on for so long. You know, it's been a long time since I joined this space as well, and so much of that history is forgotten over time. The main things that I remember from whenever I first got into the space was back then you really only had like a few cryptocurrencies. Whenever I came into the scene, there wasn't CoinMarketCap to look at all of the prices of the cryptocurrencies that were on the market. You didn't have all of these exchanges to go to actually trade. And a lot of the cryptocurrencies that were around back then are no longer around today. I can honestly say that I believe Jimmy Song and Vays know enough about the history of Bitcoin to be able to discredit a lot of things that were said in this video series by Barely Sociable. That being said, I wanted to look at this from an outside perspective. I didn't want to go in and harshly criticize anything that this guy had to say. I wanted to hear him out, and so I watched every minute of every video in his 3-part series. And after watching it, I'm still not convinced with his statement that Adam Back is Satoshi Nakamoto, and there are many reasons for that. I mean, looking at it from a new perspective, I could see why anybody would agree that Adam Back is Satoshi, because he's an incredible programmer. He's done a lot of things for us on the internet that many people don't even know about. Like, I don't even remember Barely Sociable mentioning the fact that Adam Back worked, or at least helped, in the making of Tor. He added a lot of the anonymity that we know on the Tor network. He helped design the proof of work algorithm that we know on Bitcoin that was Hashcash. And I'm pretty sure he mentions that in his videos, but the fact that he didn't even mention anything about Tor was interesting to me, because if you look back on some of the original transactions on the Bitcoin network, one of the first 3 users was using the Tor network. And you could definitely make that similarity that, well, Adam Back helped design the Tor network, and one of the first 3 users on the Bitcoin network was using Tor, but I don't believe that he is Satoshi Nakamoto. And the reason that I don't believe he was Satoshi Nakamoto is because all of the evidence suggests that Adam Back admired Satoshi Nakamoto and looked up to him. And I don't think that somebody with that kind of admiration could really be that cynical to make a bunch of posts about how much they admired somebody without being that person. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me that he would make all of these posts saying, how much of a genius he thought Satoshi Nakamoto was, and actually be that person. It doesn't add up. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at a few things that I want to talk about with this. The 3-part series in question that I'm talking about is by Barely Sociable on YouTube. And I encourage you guys to take a look at this video, or this series of videos, and give it a view. I mean, he already has 232,000 views, which is incredible for somebody that is brand new in this space. But if anything, this series is incredibly entertaining, and I don't want to take that aspect away from this series. I've always been intrigued by articles of people claiming that they know who Satoshi Nakamoto is, so I've always read them, and they've always been wrong as far as I'm concerned. Something that he said on Twitter, so I went onto his Twitter and made a reply on something that he said. So for those of you that haven't watched the series and don't know what's going on between him and Tone Vays, after the series ended on May 11th and he claimed that Adam Back was Satoshi Nakamoto, Tone Vays came out with a live stream with Jimmy Song, completely destroying this idea that Adam Back is Satoshi Nakamoto. And he did it on like a 2-hour and 40-minute live stream with Jimmy Song, just going piece by piece, breaking down the entire series and why it was flawed. And at the end, he was going to let Barely Sociable talk, and he didn't. So there was definitely a lot of resentment there. And Barely Sociable came out with a tweet later on saying, "Hey, bitch boy, I showed up to your stream, asked if I could come on and share my points. You told me to wait until the end and take notes. After 3 hours, you backed out and said you didn't have enough time. You had your chance. You lose by default." So I posted a reply to that, and I said, calling somebody a bitch boy in a debate like this doesn't really help your validity. Many of the points Tone and Jimmy made are well known by people who've been in this space for a while. I can see where you drew some of your conclusions, but the facts don't add up. Sorry, bro. He came back and said, "Alrighty, move along, little doggy." So obviously, I have a little bone to pick with him. He is a very heated person and gets very, very upset when anybody tries to discredit anything that he has said, which in this space, you have to understand that one of the main taglines that we like to use in this space is trust but verify. Somebody that is brand new to the scene making a series about who Satoshi Nakamoto is, you can bet your ass that anybody that's been in this space for long enough is going to verify what you're saying is true. And there just isn't enough validity in anything that he said to actually agree with him. And so I agree with Tone Vays and Jimmy Song on this stance. But I just wanted to show you where this video that I'm making now is coming from. It's not coming from a place of spite. I don't hate the guy, but he definitely could go about this a lot better than he has. So the first point that I wanted to make about why I don't believe Adam Back is Satoshi Nakamoto is the fact that Adam Back is a British guy, and back in 2009, I believe he moved to Malta. So both of those time zones don't really add up with the original draft or the later draft of the Bitcoin white paper timestamps. If you go to this Medium post that I'm reading right now, it says an early draft of the Bitcoin white paper from October 2008 has the following information in its metadata. And down here, you can see the date and the time. A later draft, the one published at bitcoin.org, has the following. And again, you can see the date and time. Together, the timestamp values that I showed you up here and here demonstrate that the computer used to export the paper to PDF had its time clock set to use the Mountain Time Zone of the United States. The difference in offset between the two, 7 and 6, represents the application of daylight savings time. In the United States, daylight savings time starts on the second Sunday of March, and the offset to UTC is changed from 7 to 6. So the use of the offset 6 for the date of 2009-3/24 is correct. However, in the United States, DST continues from the second Sunday of March to the first Sunday of November. So it's surprising to find that on 2008, while DST is still observed in the Mountain Time Zone, the offset given is for standard time rather than daylight savings time. There may be a good explanation for this. Satoshi may have moved from the Pacific Time Zone sometime after October 2008 to the Mountain Time Zone while working on Bitcoin and adjusted the time on his computer accordingly. Or there may have been a bug in OpenOffice 2.4 or even Windows XP that affected the reporting of MTZ times. I've not been able to find any special case treatment of time zones that would apply to that period. The other possibility is that Satoshi was manipulating the time zone on his computer to avoid identifying his time zone in the metadata of the PDF file. However, this seems unlikely, as he could have just removed the metadata completely without affecting anyone's ability to open and read it, though this would have the disadvantage of not misleading people into thinking he was in the United States. So this is basically saying that either A, he was living in the United States and didn't try to hide it in the metadata that was attached to the Bitcoin white paper, or B, he specifically put that there and manipulated his time zone on his computer to make people believe that he was in the United States. So it could be either or with this data. The thing is if it's true that he was living in the United States, then that would not be Adam Back. Adam Back was in the UK at the time, so that would not be applicable here. For somebody that doesn't want to be known for his accomplishment of creating Bitcoin, Adam Back literally has a page designated for all of the things that he has helped accomplish in any project that he's worked on. So he lists his Hashcash accomplishment here. He lists some of his anonymity projects that he's worked on, like with Tor and things like that. And then something interesting that I wanted to point out, and something, a note that I made earlier, was this right here, the cache of Satoshi Nakamoto's Wikipedia page, which the editors deleted. So apparently at one point, Satoshi Nakamoto's Wikipedia page got deleted, and Adam Back made a point to conserve that with a cached version of the page, and actually uploaded it to this page of his. And here he wrote something that I thought was kind of interesting. Wikipedia editors have seen fit to delete Nakamoto's page and merge it with the Bitcoin page. Personally, I find that discourteous. So I'm putting up this cache of what used to be on the page, and I urge anyone with Wikipedia involvement to push for its reinstatement. Bitcoin is the hottest new development on the internet this decade, and the man who did it gets deleted from Wikipedia, seemingly largely because he's using a nom de plume, and so not much is known biographically. The works of the mind are 90% of your experience on the internet, so it cannot diminish recognition of the technical accomplishment that the author chose to use and not reveal his true name. So basically, he's looking up to Satoshi Nakamoto and saying that this guy, whoever he is, deserves a place on Wikipedia. He created something fantastic and deserves a spot on Wikipedia like other people that have their own Wikipedia pages. I don't think that Adam Back is so cynical that he would, go out of his way to make this and be Satoshi Nakamoto. I don't think that anyone is that cynical. So that just proves to me that he's not Satoshi Nakamoto. And there are other points as well that I'd like to make. Why is it that Satoshi Nakamoto created a username on Bitcoin Talk and created the forum himself back in 2009, and yet it took Adam Back 4 years to make a Bitcoin Talk username? It just doesn't make any sense to me. I could see the argument that, well, he didn't want people to know that he was Satoshi, so he, waited. Well, sure, you can make that argument, but 4 years? This date, April 17th, 2013, is correlated strongly to the price action of Bitcoin. I think Adam Back came into the picture whenever he saw that Bitcoin was profitable. And you can see that everything that he's worked on with Bitcoin so far has been for profit. So I don't believe that he's Satoshi because of that. I mean, Satoshi, if he really cared about the profit of Bitcoin, he would just use his coins that he has, scattered throughout all of the wallets that he created over time whenever he was first mining Bitcoin. I don't think he would need to, get a job with Blockstream and create revenues that way, having all the Bitcoin that he had. And you could make the argument to that, oh, well, he's just trying to preserve the price of Bitcoin by not spending those. I don't know. If I was Satoshi Nakamoto, I wouldn't really care what people thought. And the thing is he has so many Bitcoins locked away in wallets that he wouldn't even have to spend that much. He could live privately somewhere, spending only a few Bitcoin every year. If he was really worried about his anonymity, and that's the thing, once the upgrade to Bitcoin happened where you could no longer see who was mining what on the blockchain, and that upgrade came about, you no longer could tell that it was Satoshi mining Bitcoin. So who's to say that after that protocol came out that he wasn't still mining Bitcoin? Because if he was, then he would definitely have some that we have no idea about. So I just don't see Adam Back being Satoshi Nakamoto. And again, on June 4th, 2013, there's a couple of posts that if you read them, and you look at what he says about Satoshi and what he says about himself, it just doesn't look like a guy that is very cynical, that thinks that he's Satoshi Nakamoto. I'll leave these links in the description below to this video so that you can go and read them. I don't want to read every single word for word that he says. Another interesting post came on the RBTC subreddit, and normally I don't go on this subreddit. I'm not even subscribed to this subreddit. I found this article and I thought it was a really interesting article, so I'm going to share it with you guys. A sure way to check if Adam Back or someone else is Satoshi. In the initial days of Bitcoin, the software used IP address to send and receive Bitcoins. The debug log reveals IPs of 3 users who were connected on 1/10/2009. Satoshi is logged in as admin and as user. The third person is Hal Finney. Hal Finney's IP can be identified to be in Lompoc, Santa Barbara County, California. Same address where he hosted his website. It's roughly 100 miles northwest of his home. Satoshi admin is connected to Tor. Satoshi's user IP belongs to Covad Communications in Van Nuys, California, 10 miles northwest of Hal's home. In my opinion, this is strong circumstantial evidence that Satoshi is Hal, and also that Craig is not Satoshi. So he's talking about Craig Wright in this, and everyone knows that Craig Wright is not Satoshi. But Hal Finney was a programmer that died of Lou Gehrig's disease that had a lot of contributions to the Bitcoin network early on. And I believe Hal died in 2013 or 2014 of Lou Gehrig's disease. There was a guy named Dorian Satoshi Nakamoto that lived just blocks away from Hal Finney. And so a lot of people associate that with the fact that Hal could have been Satoshi Nakamoto and just using a pseudonym based on somebody that he knew that lived near him. And I think that's a very valid point, along with, this evidence that Satoshi's user IP was based in California. I would have to do a little bit more research on this to find how he found these IP addresses. I guess in the early stages of the protocol, I wasn't around at that time for Bitcoin, but I guess every IP or every transaction had an associated IP address with it, so you could see exactly who was sending what on the protocol. This is pretty strong evidence that I would obviously have to go back and verify that. I've never gone to look at the IP addresses on those transactions. But if this is true, this makes strong evidence that Hal Finney is actually Satoshi Nakamoto and not Adam Back. So obviously all of this evidence, you can take it at face value if you want. It's honestly one of those things that doesn't really matter at this point. Bitcoin is going to be Bitcoin regardless of who Satoshi Nakamoto is. And I don't really care if Adam Back or Hal Finney are Satoshi. In my mind, Hal Finney is Satoshi, and he died Satoshi. Obviously, everybody is going to make their own assumptions, and I definitely encourage you to go and watch that 3-part series. You might learn a thing or two that you didn't know before about Bitcoin, because there is some knowledge to be learned in things that are stated in those videos, but please be skeptical when watching these things. It's easy to get convinced of one thing or another. There's definitely a lot of Bitcoin Cash bias and Bitcoin XT bias in the videos that he created, and I encourage you guys not to be swayed by anything like that. Just watch it to determine whether or not you think Adam Back is Satoshi Nakamoto, and compare it with things that you can find online. A simple Google search can prove that Adam Back is not Satoshi Nakamoto. You just have to look for that evidence. Thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate you sticking around to the end here. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I really appreciate each and every one of you coming out to support me. But that's going to be it for today, guys. Crypto Clay out.